Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today. So let's talk about some All Elite Wrestling. Let's talk about AEW and let's talk about All Out. Of course, All Out, all the roads are heading towards All Out now. I know we've got Fyter Fest. I know we've got Fight for the Fall. I know there's a bit of time between now and September 5th with All Out in Chicago, but already some positive news when it comes to AEW, because AEW is actually doing a bit of a weekend or a bit of a week in Chicago for All Out. Of course, they've got the Wednesday night show, Dynamite, on September 1st. They've got Rampage on the Friday on September 3rd. And then, of course, they've got All Out on the Sunday. And it's been confirmed now that All Out has indeed sold out. All Out has sold out because all the tickets available have been sold. The 2021 AEW All Out pay-per-view is officially sold out for All Elite Wrestling. Now, AEW's Twitter accounts announced that the pay-per-view was indeed a sellout, whilst former AEW World Champion himself, Le Champion Chris Jericho, appeared on the Busted Open radio show to make the very same announcement. Tickets went on sale to the general public that morning and quickly sold out before most fans even had the chance to get in the queue. Now, it appears that somewhere between 9,500 and 11,000 tickets have been officially sold for the pay-per-view events. A topic now, and this is always the topic when it comes to especially AEW tickets. I don't know if it's as much discussed when it comes to WWE, but it was certainly told a real big talking point, wasn't it? When AEW first became a thing and they first started selling out shows, there was a question around legitimacy of selling these tickets. And what I mean by that is there was a feeling that officially the Soul had showed out, but essentially what had happened is all of the available tickets had been sold to these third parties or people within AEW, all this kind of stuff. And then they were put on, the third party market, or they were put in for scalpers, etc. And then the price was just doubled, tripled, etc. That was the feeling at the time. That was certainly not an accusation, but it was something that a lot of people were talking about it. And now this is a feeling that people are talking about when it comes to All Out, because a big topic on social media right now has to do with many fans being upset over how many All Out tickets were scooped up for, as I mentioned, this secondary market. StubHub currently, as of right now, has several hundred tickets listed at premium prices, more so than would have been available on Ticketmaster, etc. Now, as noted, the AEW All Out Week pre-sale began on Thursday last week and instantly sold out, as did the trio tickets that include seats to Dynamite, Rampage, and All Out that week. Now, there are still tickets available as of right now for Dynamite and Rampage. As of the time of recording right now, Wrestle Tickets has indicated that around 5,700 tickets are being sold for Rampage right now. AEW All Out Week in 2021 is scheduled to begin, as I mentioned, on Wednesday, September 1st, with a live Dynamite on TNT. A live Rampage on TNT will then take place on Friday night. Then, of course, Sunday, we will have the All Out pay-per-view on Sunday, September 5th. All three shows will take place at the Now Arena, formerly known as the Sears Center Arena. They're calling it the birthplace of AEW because, of course, that's where All In and then All Out took place the following year. So it's an interesting situation, all of this, because first of all, selling out AEW, they're still a growing company. They're still a new company. So the fact that they're selling out instantly, very good. And it's very promising. And without diving too much into the details, when they just say in a press release, All Out sold immediately, and the entire week is going to be a sellout, and we're going to do this residency in Chicago, and it's great. From a PR point of view, people will look at that and go, that's great. I mean, again, if you don't dive into the details so much, and you just say AEW sold out for All Out, you go, that's great. Look how successful they're being. And it's true. It is true that it's a great thing to celebrate, and the fact that AEW are selling out arenas is excellent news. Now, I'm not saying that as you're just an AEW shill, you're an AEW mark or anything like that. Of course, I don't mean it like that. What I mean is any pro wrestling company, whether it's WWE, AEW, Impact, MLW, whatever building it is, whatever size, a sellout is a sellout, and they should be congratulated for that. So that's excellent news. I do think there needs to be something addressed when it comes to this secondary market issue, and again, that's not an AEW specific problem. That's a problem for the live event business in general. My hope had been almost that coming out of the pandemic, getting back to a situation where we want people to go back inside arenas, we want people to sell tickets, we want people to be going back to live events, whether it's pro wrestling, whether it's sports, whether it's any form of entertainment, whether it's the theater, concerts, you name it. I'd hope that we'd kind of got past that point of the secondary market thing of, it's a sellout in 5 minutes. Oh, it's amazing it's a sellout in 5 minutes. If it's a sellout, why are the tickets still available on, say, StubHub for 3, 4, 5, 6 times the price? It's outrageous. We just had the European Championship Finals. Don't get me started on that. But we just had the European Championship Finals, and it was a point of a massive issue. People trying to barge their way into the stadium, and they did sell out, but tickets were still available on the day for 3, 4, 5 times the price. And look, again, this isn't specific to pro wrestling, not specific to AEW or anything, but you would think coming out of a pandemic where financially people have been hit quite hard, and they still are over the course of the last 18 months or so, you would have hoped that people would have a bit of decency. But look, money talks. So I'm sure people will use that to AEW's detriment. When AEW says we sold out, people go, yeah, but you didn't. People bought up the tickets immediately and then went to sell them on. I suppose the flip side of it, you could say, well, the reason that these people are buying all of these tickets up and selling them on the secondary market for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times the value or the retail value of it is because they know there's a demand for it. There's a market for it. And again, that's very good for AEW, isn't it? Because if these scalpers, if these people that sell the tickets on the secondary market, if they didn't think there was an audience there for them to sell the tickets to, they wouldn't bother buying them in the first place. So they know that absolutely there's an audience, there's a market there that people want to go to that show. I think when it comes to, just in general, again, not talking about pro wrestling, but there should be some form of legislation in place, shouldn't there, of getting rid of that. It just doesn't seem fair. Going back to All Out, I think that at this point, I mean, how big is that arena? They said it's like 11,000, something like that. At this point, given that it's a tentpole event for AEW All Out at this point, it's one of their biggest shows of the year. Arguably, you've got Double or Nothing, and then you've got All Out. They're the two big shows. Again, like All In was the genesis of AEW, even that was an ROH-produced show back in 2018. But that was, that's the genesis of where AEW really comes from. I understand that they want to go back to that same arena because that was the idea, that was the spark, and out of the spark came AEW. I understand that, but I think already they've outgrown the building. If I'm going to be honest with you, if they can sell out the MGM Grand in Vegas for a Double or Nothing, then they don't have any issue selling out for the Sears Center in Chicago. I think at this point, could they do the Rosemont Horizon? Do they have an agreement with WWE? I don't know. But look, for instance, Dynamite, that Grand Slam edition of Dynamite that that Grand Slam edition of Dynamite that they're doing in September in Arthur Ashe Stadium. Arthur Ashe Stadium. That's like 22,000. I've no doubt they're going to sell that out. That's 22,000 people. That's in New York. That's a big market like Chicago. Who's to say they couldn't do a bigger arena? I think they could. I think they've probably outgrown it at this point. Whether or not they decide eventually to move out from there, I don't know. Maybe it's just easier for them thinking, right, I know it's a smaller arena, but on the grand, in the grand scheme of things, we're going to have it for Dynamite, Rampage, and All Out. If we can sell out all 3 nights, that's a big deal. I don't know if they can sell out all 3 nights. They can sell out All Out, probably Dynamite. Rampage is a different kettle of fish for me. I think the jury's still out on that because, again, we don't really know what that looks like. And on top of that, it's a Friday night. It's a late show. It's a 10 p.m. show. Obviously, there'll be other things going on prior to the taping. But again, there's other things to consider there. But it's certainly great news for AEW and very exciting for All Out in September. Now, I want to talk about Jim Ross here because Jim Ross has opened up on the infamous WWE Dynamite BOTCH flub that he did a couple of weeks ago on the June 30th episode of AEW Dynamite. As the show was closing, it was the final show from Daily's Place. Jim Ross accidentally referred to the show as WWE Dynamite when the show was closing. Now, Jim Ross responded to the comment on Twitter stating there was no excuses for the mistake he made, but he's not quitting anytime soon or anything like that. Several other AEW stars and WWE stars for that matter came to the defense of Jim Ross, noting he's still the greatest wrestling commentator of all time, which he is. He's not the best today, but he is still the greatest of all time. But on a recent episode of the Grilling JR podcast, of course, they were going to talk about it, Conrad Thompson and Jim Ross. Ross went into further depth on the mistake that he made and mentioned some of the harsh criticism he received from fans online. He had some very interesting stuff to say. He said, "I don't know much more I can say when I addressed it. I made a mistake. It was inadvertent, and I'm very sorry I did it, obviously. It's embarrassing. all of a sudden, out of that 1 or 2 second bite, here comes out of that for some wrestling fans, and I can say some of the wrestling fans, because I'm still a devotee of our business, I have great respect for the fans. They supported my efforts undeniably for years, through Jan's death, leaving WWE, whatever it may be, they've always stood fast. I think the criticism I've received has been a vast minority of defiant young males and some females who ascertain these points. People said I've had a stroke. By the way, I've never had a stroke, but that's been diagnosed on the internet from my faux pas. I've had a stroke. I've had a battle with Bell's palsy. I've actually had 3 bouts with Bell's palsy. That I have onset dementia, which wouldn't surprise me. It's going to happen to everybody in some ways or another. But man, I got everything on that thing of people wanting me to die. Here's what's sad about that deal. It's not about my mispronunciation. This is a much bigger issue in my opinion. That's all this is, folks, my opinion. It's the flavor of the country right now. It's just where we are, and it's sad. I don't even know what you call it. The cancel culture. It was a little rugged. Thing is that people misquote information without any thought. There's no conscious involved. It's not the fact that I thought I might get this right if I say JR has onset dementia. But then what if you're wrong? How do you pull that back in? Well, it's out there, so you don't pull it back in. Look. When it comes to all this, I mentioned it before. We addressed it here on the channel. Jim Ross, to me, the greatest play-by-play wrestling announcer of all time. That will never, ever change. Jim Ross going to AEW doesn't hurt his legacy for me. He is still the greatest of all time in what he does. There is no doubt about that. I mentioned it before. Is Jim Ross the best commentator today? No, he's not. And I think anyone, if they thought they were getting prime Attitude Era Jim Ross, good old JR in AEW, then they were naive. I could have told you 5 years ago JR wasn't in his peak anymore. He wasn't in his prime anymore. The fact he's on that show is because he's Jim Ross, because he has a voice, he has a name people recognize. And when people are switching over or people are talking about AEW, they go, what's that AEW? They go, oh, it's great. Jim Ross is a commentator. They go, I love Jim Ross. And they'll go watch it for that reason or go listen to it for that reason. And he adds credibility to the show, and he absolutely still has a place on AEW television. He absolutely has a place in the commentary booth. There's no doubt about that. Now, I would, initially, you might look at that and say, look, Jim, nobody wants you to die for saying WWE Dynamite or anything like that. The scary thing is there are people out there on social media that will say stuff like that. I believe him. People will say stuff like that to him. Oh, Jim Ross, can't believe you said that. Go die and stuff like that. It's horrendous. You might hear those comments that Jim Ross says then and think, oh, you're being over the top. But the thing is, he's not. That's what social media is. Now, again, I agree with him in the sense that I never for a second thought, he said WWE Dynamite, he should be fired, he should be taken off of television, it's one step too far. Jim Ross has said it a couple of times. He called Kenny Omega the WWE champion and all this kind of stuff. It's live television. Mistakes do happen. He's an older guy. It's just a reflex for him at this point. He's been with the WWE for over 20 years. He still talks about the WWE on his podcast every week. Live television, mistakes happen. It is what it is. I don't think he should be, but I don't know if maybe it is cancel culture. I just hate using that term because I think it's so overused. I think it's so over, I think sometimes people do take things too far, but you also, again, you have to remember the voices you're listening to. And this is always my opinion as someone that, is on social media quite a lot, is that a lot of the things people say to you, they would never, ever say to your face. We just had it this week with the football over here. You had 3 guys miss penalties and they got just a torrent of racist abuse, which is disgusting and it's reprehensible. And it's just people that are hiding behind the computer because they would never, or their phone, because they would never say that. They would never, ever say that. And it does hurt. It really does hurt, and it's unacceptable, and there should be reform when it comes to the use of social media. I don't think JR should have lost his job, or it's time for JR to retire because he got a phrase wrong. No, you're kidding me. It's ridiculous. But, in the same vein, and I think he does have to realize, I've made this mistake a couple of times. I've got to up my game. There's nothing wrong with that. There have been some episodes of Dynamite, let's be honest, that, again, and this isn't, you're not in your prime anymore. There have been some episodes of Dynamite where you listen to JR and you go, come on, you're capable of better than that. Or sometimes some of the things he says that aren't botches, I think at the time with the Anna Jay thing, the pay-per-view last year, when you go, man, come on, let's be professional here. Let's put the work in, all that kind of stuff. That's fair criticism. And there is this weird fine line between criticism and taking it too far. Again, cancel culture. He shouldn't lose his job or anything like that. He never was going to. And again, these crazy people on social media that just, you make a mistake and, we want you to die and all this kind of stuff. Again, you might think it's over the top. There are those people out there. And that's terrifying. That's absolutely terrifying. But I think it's interesting as to what he said there. And to be honest, last week on Dynamite, I don't know if it's the crowd, I don't know what it is, he certainly had more energy, Jim Ross. So I think that's interesting too. Trent, of course, recently had neck fusion surgery, a very serious surgery. He's opened up following his surgery. Now, best friends, of course, that comprises Orange Cassidy, Trent, Chuck Taylor, and Chris Statlander. They're one of the most popular factions, of course, in AEW right now. But they've had their fair share of injuries. Of course, Chris Statlander, she had an ACL injury, which kept her sidelines for nearly a year. Upon her return, Trent suffered a neck injury, which has sidelined him indefinitely. Now, he recently had an interview with Stephanie Chase's YouTube channel alongside the best friends, and he was asked about his condition and his recovery. This is what Trent had to say, quote, "It's been like 2 weeks and I feel great, but I know that in between my vertebrae, I don't have any bones or anything. It's kind of just dust waiting to grow into bone. It doesn't feel like anything, and it's going to be a while before I come back. Surgery-wise, it was easier than I expected. I feel good." So, again, neck fusion surgery is no joke. Just ask people like Edge. Just ask people like Steve Austin. Just ask people like Tommaso Ciampa. Is this a career ender? It doesn't seem like it, which is a positive, but the issue is when it comes to neck injuries, you can be on borrowed time when it comes to your pro wrestling career. I hope that's not the case, but we don't know. We don't know. The fact that he's saying, it's going to be a while before I come back, but time will tell. I hope he can come back sooner rather than later, but, neck injuries, spinal cords, you name it, they're no joke. They're nothing to be messed around with. They're nothing that you have to take as long as you can. And I don't think it's going to stop him from being on Dynamite or anything like that. I'm sure he'll travel still, but in the same vein that Ricky Starks did, but Ricky Starks' neck injury was less serious than Trent's, it would appear. So time will only tell, but, it's a horrible injury. It's a horrible injury, and hopefully he can be back soon, and it doesn't affect long-term his career, certainly. The Young Bucks are back with another Twitter bio. Oh, they're very good. They're very good, aren't they? They've threatened to shut down Being the Elite BTE permanently in their latest Twitter bio. Now, about 5 years ago, Kenny Omega, Nick, and Matt Jackson started the YouTube series. To this day, they continuously post weekly BTE episodes featuring numerous AEW stars. If you haven't watched it, I really do recommend it. You would think, it's just an extension of Dynamite. It's really not. It's so, tongue-in-cheek, but they're dropping F-bombs all the time. It's great. And for me, again, someone that wasn't totally exposed to it initially for a while, when I became a big fan of it, was watching the Brody Lee Dark Order stuff on Being the Elite. That is still to this day some of the best content that AEW have produced ever. It's amazing. It's hilarious. It really is. And, some of the best Dark Order stars. I mean, John Silver, Alex Reynolds, that all comes through Being the Elite. That's how they found their personality. So they posted, the Young Bucks, they pronouns pal, posted a bio to Twitter indicating that they could pull BTE at any time. They said, quote, "Can't wait to end BTE. Enjoy it while you can. One day it'll go away forever. Ha ha ha. Then you only have that little dork Sammy's vlog left." Now, obviously, I don't think they're going to cancel BTE anytime soon. They're known for their amusing and tongue-in-cheek Twitter bios. And frankly, BTE, if you really want to look into it, probably makes them a substantial amount of money through ad revenue on Google. So I don't think they're going to end BTE anytime soon. But look, their Twitter bio game, very strong, isn't it? Very, very strong. Very good. Finally, Darby Allin. There was a lot of discussion that Darby Allin was going to be in Jackass, right? Jackass 4 is coming out at the end of this year. And there was a big news doing the rounds. We spoke about it here on the channel, that Darby Allin would be showcased in this upcoming Jackass 4 film. Now, this news came out after IMDb listed him in the cast section of the movie. Now, this isn't uncommon, of course, because other professional skaters, not that Darby Allin's a professional skater, but other skaters and BMXers Tony Hawk, Matt Hoffman, etc. They've all participated in Jackass films, in stunts, in segments throughout the years. So it was a feeling that Darby Allin was going to be in it. He's a skateboarder too, and he spoke about his desire to be in Jackass. His kind of ring style is a bit Jackassy in the sense he comes out of a skateboard and just absolutely kills himself with some of the bumps he takes. So fans were very excited. I was excited to see Darby Allin in Jackass 4. I thought it was great promotion for AEW too, and people thought this is going to be great. It's going to be absolutely great. But in a surprising turn of events, Darby Allin said on Twitter that he will not be in the movie, which is certainly very interesting. There was a tweet that came out from NotFest on social media. It said, quote, the cinematic celebration of the, quote, perfectly executed shot to the Ding Dong in Jackass Forever will feature cameos from Shaq, Tony Hawk, Eric Andre, Darby Allin, and UFC heavyweight champion Francis Ngannou, and Post Malone, hashtag Jackass Forever. But quote tweeting this account, Darby Allin stated he's not in the movie. He said, quote, I ain't in the movie. So Darby Allin saying that he's not going to be part of Jackass 4, which if that is the case is a massive shame. I don't know if he's telling the truth. Maybe they want to save it as a surprise. Who knows? He hasn't really spoken about it. And the thing is with nowadays with movies and TV series, when people say they're not going to appear in it, a lot of the time they end up doing it anyway. And look, Darby Allin lives in the world of pro wrestling where everything's a work. So maybe he's just working. But look, guys, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on all of these AEW news stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, WWE, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Gut the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now. Or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.